Welcome, everyone. I'm so glad you could join us today. I'm very excited for this session. We have the good luck of having Lisa Berry from Esri. She is going to walk us through all the ins and outs of Living Atlas. Lisa has been a senior product engineer at Esri for the past 8 years. She creates content for ArcGIS Living Atlas of the world. She specializes in the data processing and mapping from the US Census Bureau, and she's open for all kinds of questions. So get your questions ready, and we're going to have a fabulous session. So I'm going to turn it over to Lisa. Lisa, do you want to go ahead and share your screen and say hello?
Awesome. Good day, everyone. It's a lovely afternoon over here. I hope it's just as lovely over where you guys are. Thank you guys so much for having me. As she mentioned, I am part of the Living Atlas team here at Esri, and I'm a senior product engineer. You can see mapping projects from my Twitter over here. Don't feel obligated. I'm going to go ahead and stop my video so that we can focus on the content now. All right, so I'm going to get us started by just some housekeeping stuff. So first we'll start by talking about what is the Living Atlas. You know, some of you may be familiar with it, some of you may not, and so we'll kind of give a broad overview. We'll go over what Living Atlas content is available. We'll also talk about how to use Living Atlas within your existing workflows. We'll also talk about how you can nominate your own content to Living Atlas. So just to get us started on kind of a high level, ArcGIS includes ready-to-use content. That ready-to-use content is ArcGIS Living Atlas of the world. It's the foremost collection of worldwide geographic information from both Esri and from the global GIS community. This community includes all types of organizations from federal, state, and county governments, cities, environmental groups, universities, and even private companies. It's very much a living atlas. Indeed, some of the content is even live. All of it is curated, authoritative, and continually updated. And what's incredible about Living Atlas is it's built into the ArcGIS user experience, and you get immediate value across the entire ArcGIS system, no matter where your workflows exist. It's deeply integrated into Pro, into Enterprise, ArcGIS Online in particular. It's used in field apps, business apps, and also so many other ways. It's the foundation upon which you create your own maps and apps, support your workflows, perform analysis, and share your work with others. But you may be asking, well, what's in it? Essentially, you can think of it as content. This includes base maps. Any base map you've ever used in a map, that's considered Living Atlas content. Our team actually helps manage and create those. Layers, when you add a data layer into your map, this can be imagery, elevation, live feeds, anything that's time enabled, but also web maps. These are more like ready-to-use pre-configured maps that you can just interject into your applications. We also have applications. These are custom apps. They're also configurable. We have stories, dashboards, web experiences, all sorts of content that helps you maybe avoid the whole process of starting from scratch. You can actually start with an app and it may be able to help you kickstart your process. We also have tools, things like rule packages, deep learning packages, map packages, really just anything to help you with your workflows. And really, the core of it, you can find information on the Living Atlas website. This can be a really good starting point, especially if you've never used Living Atlas before. It's an important resource that's often overlooked. The website is a one-stop destination for news, blogs, learning, discovering, community participating, nominating your own content, and it's easy to find at livingatlas.arcgis.com. So if you have forgotten everything I say at the very end of this, livingatlas.arcgis.com is a great starting point, and I'll give you a quick tour of this in a little bit. So when I was talking about apps, what did I mean by that? We have some easy to use highlighted apps. And the phrase that kind of goes around our team is that it unlocks the potential of Living Atlas content. This helps you discover more about the data, learn more about the data, and leverage the content. I'll show you some examples in a little bit. And what's cool about this is that some of these apps are, you can download the source on GitHub and edit them for your purposes. So these apps deliver tools that help you extract content or create maps directly. So they're not only interesting and educational, but they're also there to support you in your map making workflows. For example, we have new apps that help. We've updated and improved these apps, with better usability, cartography, updated data. We have lots of new apps that highlight new content that's in Living Atlas. Again, because it's living, we are always getting new content. Like I said, they're open source and you're available to download the code on GitHub. All the ones here are, all these ones listed here are just a few examples, and they're discoverable in the apps tab of the Living Atlas website, which I'll show, but they're also going to be available in the browse tab. They're really great, and they'll sometimes just get you kickstarted, give you some inspiration. Really encourage you to check these out, especially if you're new to a data set or if you'd like to see the potential of how something can be stratified from a raw data set. I'll mention a few that are listed here because they're notable. The World Imagery Wayback gives you a way to go back through our world imagery archives and get imagery at specific dates or view change over time. We've recently added the swipe tool that lets you compare imagery easily. It can also be part of your workflow. You can share your swipe comparisons out with the world, and you can create web maps directly from that app. So if your workflows are dependent on comparing patterns over time, the World Imagery Wayback is an incredible tool. Another one is the Air Quality Aware app. This is intended to provide information about the current conditions of air quality in the United States, along with potential human health impacts, which are shown using infographics. The data comes from the EPA, AirNow, NOAA, and the US Census Bureau. This is a great example of an app that leverages our live feed data sets as well as forecasts. And our air quality and current conditions are updated hourly, and forecasts are generated daily. And so this is really interesting because you can go on at any time and see what the world looks like right now. Another example is the Landsat Explorer. This lets you work with multispectral, multitemporal, Landsat imagery, and apply different renderers. You can choose an acquisition date. You can use a swipe to compare the results. And once you've found something interesting to you, you can again save it as a web map. Another app that I'll highlight in the demo in a minute is the Esri Maps for Public Policy, which is a collection of expertly crafted, expressive maps that have been chosen because they reveal important information about a community. And you can type in your community and learn more about it and learn where there are opportunities to intervene. So policy maps help spark conversations and allow users to begin exploring their communities immediately. You don't need to be a GIS expert in order to utilize an app like the Esri Maps for Public Policy site. It includes the latest Living Atlas demographics, data from the Census Bureau, American Community Survey, CDC, Social Vulnerability, Bureau of Labor Statistics, the list goes on. Essentially, if you work with public policy, this site is a really great place to start, especially if you're working with a non-GIS centric audience. Policy maps have also expanded focus beyond demographics to include content related to health, air quality, broadband access, as well as the environment. So you might be asking, well, who is the Living Atlas community? Who has contributed to the Living Atlas? And that's kind of it's everyone. It's anyone who does GIS work, anyone who's in the GIS community worldwide. Anyone can contribute to Living Atlas, and we can encourage contributors of all types. not just maps and layers, but also apps, stories, dashboards, and even tools or templates. Since the Living Atlas is curated, what you submit must be reviewed before it can just be accepted. Acceptance means it has cleared the Living Atlas standards and it can be placed among the best of the content in Living Atlas. When I mean it means it's been cleared. Essentially, it goes through a curation process where we have a team of curators who check that it has been well documented, that it comes from authoritative source. Essentially, it's a vetting process to make sure that the end community using Living Atlas knows they're getting something that is of high quality and high value from an authoritative source. We also have the Community Maps program, which is designed to enable you to help build the Living Atlas of the world by contributing base map details and submeter in imagery, contributing to address data to the World Geocoding Service, enhancing elevation and bathymetry, and enhancing other content. There are also other helper apps that have been recently updated to support your contributions and feedback. And I'll just say, to sum this up, Living Atlas is a very vibrant and growing crowdsourced community so that the GIS community as a whole can work together so that we're not repeating work. Living Atlas includes content from many different organizations. Esri publishes much of the content in Living Atlas, and we'll focus a lot on that today, but there's also a wealth of content from Esri partners and users. The Living Atlas includes content from Esri partners such as SafeGraph, which provides detailed places data in the United States, Canada, and even the United States. This also includes high-res satellite imagery for areas that might be affected by natural disasters or other events. Living Atlas also includes content authoritative from authoritative organizations such as NOAA, the European Environmental Agency, and many others. One of the more notable additions we've had in the past year is a set of new imagery layers from the UN Environment Program World Conservation Monitoring Center. Sorry, that's a big phrase. These layers presented here offer above and below ground terrestrial carbon storage worldwide and are available to support visualization as well as analysis. We have global live feeds that cover a wide range of topics, as you can see here. We're always adding to this collection. And if you have any data to contribute, please contact us. We're always trying to build out this collection. You may have seen some of the COVID maps show up in the past year. Those, we worked directly with Johns Hopkins, and we got that data set to the people who needed it to make decisions. We also have a wide range of US specific data for live feeds. Again, these are just a few examples, but essentially it's mainly for emergency management, disaster response, as well as anything that can benefit the public. We pull a lot of information from the National Weather Service, and that's made freely available for the United States. We definitely have a lot of content there, and the weather watches and warnings gets updated every few minutes. The tornado warnings also gets updated quite often. We have storm reports, the National Water Model, which provides 18-hour and 10-day forecasts of where rivers and streams may be flooding. And again, we also have US specific COVID county updates data, which is updated daily. The Living Atlas works directly with our Esri disaster response team and our customers to improve the appearance, performance, scalability, and reliability of these layers, especially when high demand events occur, such as a hurricane or wildfires. We work directly with the agencies to make sure that the data is in the hands of those who need it most to make decisions to save the world. We currently have 26 Esri hosted feature layers, live feeds in a total of 59 maps, layers, and apps in the Living Atlas. One of the things we've learned is our live feed data is some of our most popular content. We again encourage you to also nominate your content. So you can ask yourself a few questions. Do you have that authoritative data? Is the data open to the public? Well, then we would highly encourage you to host it. I guess I should have added this in here as well. Document it and then share it with the GIS community through the Living Atlas. And so with that, I'm going to hop over to a live demo so I can start actually putting some visuals to all these different things that I've been talking about. So again, this is livingatlas.arcgis.com, and this, again, a great place to start if you're just getting started. One of the first things I recommend doing is logging in when you get here, because then the experience is a little more integrated into your workflows. That's just a little tip I'll give you to start. This homepage is a really good place to learn about what's new. We host a lot of different blogs that try to communicate what the newest data sets we have to offer are. For example, if you use the census PL data, that has been in the Living Atlas since about a few days after census released it. And so if you're interested in how that got in there, that's there's a blog about that. We also have information about the COVID data or land cover. So for example, NLCD recently updated their data, and that was updated in the Living Atlas. So this is a really great place if you're interested in knowing what's the latest and greatest, newest data in Living Atlas. Now the Browse tab, I'll say this is where I live the most. This is the view into all the content that's available. And this is, I'd say, the one-stop shop where I usually find content. One of the first things I like to do, because the Living Atlas is global in nature, is I like to make sure to first set this to United States. This really just helps me narrow down my search so that I can get a good solid basis. And really, this is just like any other experience in ArcGIS Atmosphere. You can search by different types. Layers are fundamental to GIS workflows. These are essentially, you can think of more like raw data, but it's a little bit more than that. It's really pre-configured, ready to get started. It's more than just going to an FTP site and ending up with a table. These are truly ready to use content that have already been pre-configured. They have a pop-up and you can just start customizing them. Maps are already pre-configured, but you again can also save those to your content and configure them to your needs. We also have scenes, apps, story maps, all sorts of different content, as well as tools, like I mentioned before. If you're interested in temporal data, you can also filter by those purposes. There's a lot of different, I think the live feeds data in general is the most critical when searching for that. So let's go ahead and talk through these categories real quick. If you're new to Living Atlas in particular, this might be a little daunting. There's a lot of content here and you may need something in particular, or you may just want to see what's available. And so these categories right here unlock the secrets. It's not a secret, actually. It's pretty well known. But essentially, let's just kind of go through these real quick and give some examples so that you can get a little bit more familiar with what's in the Living Atlas. Let's take a look at base maps. Again, base maps are the core of your maps. You've all used a base map, whether or not you even realize it. It's that view of the world behind every map that you make. But what you may not know is that there's a lot more options in Living Atlas than you've probably seen in the normal base map selector. You have so many different options when it comes to either a creative view of the world, a reference view of the world, or some sort of other contextual information. And so all of this is at your fingertips. There's also WGS 84 versions. There's just so many. And if you have not explored this, highly recommend it. There are also subcategories, which I'll talk about. But like for base maps, we have reference maps, creative maps, vector maps, and historical maps, as well as component layers. So really, you can almost build your own, customize your own. The sky's the limit. Let's go over to imagery for those of you who might be interested in doing imagery analysis or mapping. One notable data set that I like to point out that we have, especially for our US GIS users, is the NAPE imagery. You'll notice right away there's a handful of them in here. There's natural color, NDVI, color infrared, basic imagery. This is wildly valuable because NAIP is such a high-res data set. It is 1 meter or better. And this is, I get asked about this one a lot. So we do have NAIP imagery. We also have things like Landsat, GOES, MDA, a lot of different options in here. And again, if you explore the subcategories, you can filter this to whether you want multispectral, temporal, or event-specific imagery. So something I haven't quite covered yet is how to kind of understand what you're seeing here. How do you understand what's in one of these layers? Or who is it made by? So you can immediately click on the name and you can learn more about who has hosted this data and how it got into the Living Atlas. And so I like to give that tip just because it gives you that little extra bit of trust in the source of the data and where it's from. So that's just my quick little tip of the day. I'll give you one more real quick. You'll notice that some of these have these little badges here. Some of them say authoritative, some of them say subscriber. What do those mean? Well, ArcGIS Online has a capability where your organization can set itself as authoritative. So the items that are marked with authoritative have gone through a process where essentially Esri has confirmed this is an authoritative source and every piece of content from that organization should be trusted. You can even filter to any of those orgs who have done that process. So this is one other tip, is to check for authoritative only content. Now, what about subscriber content? Subscriber content essentially means it requires an ArcGIS Online organizational account to look at it. This doesn't require credits or anything. It just simply requires that you have a login. That's not to say that you cannot share these out. You just may have to embed your credentials, and that way we know that someone trustworthy is sharing this out with the world. So there's just some imagery that we have. There's also loads of boundaries that are available to us. I don't even know where to start here because there's so much, but you'll recognize a few things right off the bat. We have a lot of OpenStreetMap content that is updated regularly to match OpenStreetMap at the website. And so this is a really great place if you need something like county boundaries, parks, census tracts, federal lands. This is a really great resource as kind of that basis for your map so that you don't have to go to, say, the Tiger website, or you don't have to go to USGS. You can come to Living Atlas and add these layers or maps straight into your workflows again. And so again, I can get lost in here real quick with the available options, but again, there are also subcategories for boundaries. We have administrative, environmental, as well as geometric. So this is just a few ways to look through what we have. Let's go over to the people category. This is where I live. If you see content in here, this is related to the population of the United States. You'll notice a few things right away. We have things such as data from the Bureau of Labor Statistics. This is updated monthly with the most current unemployment figures from BLS. And so that's really valuable because you can compare the most current 14 months to see how the pattern has changed over time, where it's going, etc. It's a very useful way to assess, especially during 2020, how the economy was going. We also have quite a few data sets related to social distancing or COVID. And so if you have COVID related projects, these are both great resources. You can add these directly into your projects. We also have loads of American Community Survey data from the US Census Bureau data. I'll give you a demo of that in a little bit, but that's just a little teaser. Any of these ones you see that say ACS topic boundaries or centroids, there's tons of them. You can find almost any ACS topic available. We also have quite a bit of CDC data in here. Social vulnerability, we have the places data. I really like to show this one. You can use our search. The places data is incredibly valuable. This replaced their 500 cities effort, and now it's known as places, and it is far more detailed. And this is actually coming directly from the CDC. We work with a team there to get their content nominated. And this one is a really commonly used set of data because it's coming from, again, an authoritative source, and people need to add these directly into their projects. So that's just a really quick intro there. People has quite a few different subcategories. You'll see, people are a complex topic. And so we have things such as population, housing, income, health, at risk. I like to explore each one of these on their own and kind of see what data there is to use. So for health, we'll get a lot of CDC data. We have things like the county health rankings data. Again, we have a lot of American Community Survey data. Kind of the skies are the limit if you need to explore anything about the population. Another example of another category is the infrastructure category. These are things and institutions that people create, such as buildings, roads, businesses, anything along those lines when it comes to infrastructure. So if you're working with the digital divide, you might be interested in learning where cell towers are. We have quite a bit of information from the FCC that's available in Living Atlas for the digital divide information. And so the infrastructure category is a great place to start if you work in an industry that requires this type of information. For example, even things like schools. And then one of, I'd say, our most popular categories is environment. This really is about the world around us. And this is where you'll find almost all of our live feeds data. Again, live feeds are our most popular, and you can see right away which layers are from them, or live feeds, sorry, they say by Esri live feeds. And so just for a few examples, you can see we have active hurricanes, we have weather warnings and watches, recent imagery, current wildfires, earthquakes, current wind and weather. And I mean, the list really does go on. And if you want to learn more about one of these, you can simply click on it and it will bring you to the item page. And now, again, going back to what something requires to get into the Living Atlas, this is one of the requirements. It must be well documented so that anyone who finds this item can know information like the source, or in this case, the update frequency. Here, it's updated every 15 minutes. And you can learn more about the methodology of how it was updated. You'll notice this one does not have the subscriber tag. That means it's fully free to use within your workflows. You'll learn more about who is accredited for the data, as well as if there are any terms of use, maybe use constraints and whatnot. So again, this is what we mean when we say it goes through a curation process. It must be well documented so that we can trust where it's coming from. And again, I'll just reiterate again, if you have question of who it's by, again, you click on it, you can learn more. For example, this is a data set from the NOAA Geo Platform team who we work with quite regularly, and they actually are the ones hosting their own data. All right, so I've given you quite a flood of information of just going over the categories. I'm now going to jump to some of those apps that I talked about. So again, these apps help you kickstart your processes, especially if you have a non-GIS audience, or if you just simply do not have the time to stratify something out of a data set. This is a really great place to start. There's no GIS experience required here, and these are quick, digestible ways to understand data sets. And one piece of information is that all of these are being driven by layers that you saw over in the Browse tab. So when you saw a layer back before, it will be driving one of these apps. And so these are just examples almost of things that you can create from this content. Let's go over, let's show a few of these just for example. I think this one might hit a little bit home, granted that you all are in Arizona, where it's quite dry and warm, just like it is here where I live in Southern California. But let's quantify that. Let's put this into a map. We can see actually where I am is a little bit more in drought than where you all are. And so what's cool about this is if you click on a county, you get this quick stratification of the data in an interactive way that helps you digest the information. We also have other additional information, such as this data, which comes from the Census, US Census of Agriculture. And so you can kind of see how drought might impact croplands. And I see that there's a handful of different agricultural impacts that could occur in the area just south and southeast of Phoenix. Let's go ahead and click on one of these and learn more about your guys' area. In Maricopa County, we can see the pattern of drought over time going all the way back to 2000. So this is a really interesting way, again, to learn a quick and digestible way to share GIS information. So if you need to talk to a policymaker quickly about something like drought and you need to quantify it in an easy to know way, this is an example of how apps can be helpful. Let's go back and explore one more. I'm a little bit biased because I've helped create this one, but this is the Esri Maps for Public Policy. Now, again, this is really useful when working with policymakers because these are topics where the goal is that there has to be no GIS experience required. You can simply start asking questions. One way to get started on this site is to look at these kind of prepackaged questions along the bottom. So for example, if you're interested in learning more about your community based on the newest census data that just came out, you can type in your area. I'm going to go ahead and look up Redlands because that's where I'm from. I'd like to learn more about my community. And so what it's going to do here is give me a collection of 5 maps that are related to the topic that we started on. So right away, we can learn more about the population at a very detailed level, all the way down to the block level in this example, since we're working with census data. All of these maps provide quick and easy information so that you can click on an area and learn more about the detailed population. Now, this is a very basic example. If we clicked through to explore some of the other patterns, we'd see other things such as where's the adult population. Or even if we were interested in equity concerns, we might look into the predominant race and ethnicity in our area. Now, the policy site gives us a collection such as this, but we can also customize this to our needs. If you were interested in learning more about social equity or health, to build on this topic that we're seeing, you can start to browse through here. And again, this is built on top of Living Atlas. So you'll even find these over in the Browse tab where we saw before. So right here, we see this collection of maps it offered me about census right away were these 5 maps: vacant housing, race, people living in group quarters. But I may be interested in learning more about a specific part of the population. For example, I might be interested in learning about the population who are Hispanic or Latino in my area. I can choose to collect this map. You'll notice my collection now went up to 6. And if we click over to that 6th map, you now can see what the Hispanic population is in this area. And in this map in particular even gives us a reference about the national average. So we can see which areas have more densely Hispanic populations living within them. Now, if you've gone through the effort to create a collection of maps that communicates the topics that you're interested in sharing, this little blue box is your area of happiness. You simply copy this link, go to a new tab, or share this out with someone. And what this is going to do is give whoever you share this with, whether it be a policymaker or a colleague, this will open up the set of maps exactly as you had left it before. And so what's cool about this is that it is easily customizable. Anywhere you zoom it into, any maps that you choose, it stores all of that. You can also share it in an email, Twitter, or Facebook. You can even add these to your favorites in ArcGIS Online. So this is, again, a really cool and easy way to collect and share information about, and maps for non-GIS audiences. All right. I actually am going way faster than I meant to, so maybe we're going to actually have a ton of time to talk about questions at the end. Sorry, I get so excited to talk about maps, but I will go through real quick and touch on a few other things. If you are interested in contributing your own data, this Contribute tab is where you can access the Community Maps program. So if you have data that you want to exist within, say, the base maps, if you see a feature that doesn't look right in your area, you can work directly with our team, our Community Maps team here at Esri, and say, hey, I've noticed an error. Here's the data to fill that gap. And this will show up in a lot of different places. You can see all these different contributors around the world are helping improve our base maps, because it turns out they may have better data than the data providers that a lot of our base maps use. So the Community Maps program is a great way to enter the feedback loop of what is shared with the GIS community. Another way to contribute your data, if you have hosted layers, maps, apps, all those different layer types from what we saw before, you can go to My Contributions. This is another reason why I say I like to log in first. Here you'll see all your content. It even says you have 160 items that might be eligible for Living Atlas of the World. But let's go ahead and just explore some of my 1,400 items. I create a lot of maps. I'm sure you guys can relate to this as well. So for example, here's a layer that I hosted up this morning to test something. Right away, it's saying, you know what? This is not Living Atlas quality. It's got a bunch of underscores in the name. It doesn't have a thumbnail. It needs to be public, needs to have a nice detailed item description page. So these red symbols say, stop, you cannot pass go. You must document your item so that it is well understood by those who are using this content. It also offers these yellow warning signs that say, hey, we suggest you improve your profile, or say the title, it's too short. It contains a prohibited character. And you'll notice all of this is adding up into a score. And so in order to nominate something, it needs to be at least 80 points. So let's go ahead and explore some of these items. You'll see this one has already been accepted. It was actually accepted yesterday. This one is a story map. It already has a summary. It's been shared. And it's even still telling me, hey, Lisa, you could improve your profile description. So now I have an action item for when I get off of this webinar. But this is a really useful way to see which items can be in the Living Atlas and what needs to be added in order for them to reach Living Atlas quality. What's cool about this process is that once you have reached a score of 80, this button will turn blue. You click Nominate Now, and you will enter into this feedback loop with a curator from the Living Atlas team who will help either accept your item right away if it's complete and authoritative, or they'll enter in a dialogue with you about what is needed in order for it to get to the point where it could be Living Atlas content. If you're interested in this process, we have a nice checklist. I can share this. I'll share this with my moderator. Perhaps she can get that into the chat. This is a nice checklist that can walk you through what is required. Obviously, as we saw over here, it gives you an indication, but this checklist is a nice way to really just check and make sure that you have everything that you need. And so this will walk you through that process if you were to go through it. And if you needed an even more detailed guidance to share your content with the Living Atlas, there's this whole story map that again will walk you through the process. And so it tells you why you would add your GIS work and as well as how to do so. So this is another resource actually using our ArcGIS story maps that walks you through the process. All right, and now that we have kind of that basic intro to Living Atlas, I'm going to actually just show you how you can actually access this stuff directly from a map. And so what I like to tell people is Living Atlas content is, it's layers, it's maps, it's things you can use within your already existing projects. And so here I'll start with the Map Viewer Classic. So the same place you add data, you'll find the Living Atlas. So here we'll browse Living Atlas, and here you'll be able to access those categories I talked about before, as well as those subcategories that we talked about before. What's cool about this experience within the map viewer is that you can even say, I want to only see content that is within my map area. So if I am zoomed in to Arizona, it will only offer me data that covers my area of interest. And so this is a nice tool for narrowing down your search. Real quick, I'll show you an example of something. For example, we have stream gauges. Because I'm in the people category, silly me. So here we go, we have live stream gauges. If I want to learn more about the stream gauges, I can click on that, and this is that item details page that we saw before. So if you need to learn more about the data set, where it's from, who the sources are, this is built all into the experience so that you get all that same information we saw before, but you actually never have to leave the map. So I can choose to add that directly into my map. And now right away in my content, I have Living Atlas content within my map, and I can zoom this into my area of interest. I can customize it with a different base map, and I can simply save this. And what's cool about a data set such as this one, which is a live data set, is that if I add this just as I did, save it to my area, it will still always contain the most up-to-date information every time I open my map. So this is a really cool way to access live data without ever needing to do any data processing. Now let's see a similar example within the new map viewer. If you guys haven't been in here yet, I highly recommend it. There are some really cool features that come along with this because it sits on a new JavaScript API. So there's my quick pitch. If you haven't tried the new map viewer, please do. It's awesome. But if you're interested in adding Living Atlas data, again, it's the same way that you add any other data to your map. And in this case, I don't want my content. I want Living Atlas content. Again, we can get to those filters, the subcategories, the regions, the item types, all those things that we've already seen before. We can filter through and search for information. And in this case, I'm going to show you how to find some of those ACS layers. This is my favorite phrase that I use all the time as a search phrase. Current year ACS. I use it all the time, and it's the easiest way to get to census data in Living Atlas. If you're interested in learning more about one of these, like the poverty status variables, you can learn more about which ACS table is being called, where it was called from, when it was downloaded, as well as what the vintage is. And so these are really valuable and popular layers that we have in the Living Atlas because they save you an incredible amount of time when you need to map something for the population. You'll notice right away we have state, county, and tract geographies. It is already symbolized. It already has a neat pop-up that is informative about the topic. But this is also fully customizable, kind of like I showed before. Let's just do a quick example. If I'm interested in only showing the data within Maricopa County, I can say, all right, I clicked too fast. I want to look for Maricopa County. I'm going to filter it. Now I have a map to my area, and I may even want to add a Living Atlas base map. We have all the ones that are offered by default, but down here at the bottom, we can access the Living Atlas base maps and change that as well. So if I wanted to maybe try the newspaper map, I could try that out and it will automatically add it as, oh, my new base map. Zoomed out to the world because it's available at the world. So that's just a quick example of how we can customize the map. And then right away, you can hit save, and this is now your map and your content. Now this data, ACS data, gets updated every year behind the scenes by our team in the Living Atlas. And so as soon as the ACS releases their newest data values, this map will reflect those newest values within a few days of the census releasing their data. And that applies to all of those different ACS layers that are available that cover a wide range of topics. All right, and so I'll end real quick before we get to questions with a quick example of, well, how would I do this in Pro? Maybe where you live is in Pro. Again, it's wherever you add data. So if you are adding data into your map, popped over here, in your portal options, instead of going from My Content or ArcGIS Online, you would go from Living Atlas. And again, you can filter this by the different categories or by different tags or status. This is where you can see if something is authoritative. And this is a really great way to search for content for your maps as well. So this is just another view into that same data that we saw before. And then just one more, if you prefer the catalog method, you can go into portal. And let's say it's over here on the far right. This is the Living Atlas button over here. Again, you can see those categories that we've seen before. And we may be interested in something like air quality. And so we have air quality now, which is the same one we saw before. You can simply add that into your map and just start working with the data. And again, this every time you open up your map, this will reflect the newest, most up-to-date data from Air Now in this particular example. And so I know that was a lot of words. I know I've been talking for 50 minutes, but now I'd really like to just kind of close us off. Oh, sorry, that was our last slide. How do I? Bear with me. Technology, fighting it. I'll just now open us up to questions. I'll probably, in the meantime, also shoot over a few resources to our moderators so that they can share those with you as well. And I appreciate you sticking with me for the last 50 minutes. Let's go ahead and answer some questions.
Thank you, Lisa. That was amazing. Absolutely amazing. I'm sitting here going, wait, what? Live update? What? What?
Too much good stuff.
Yeah, and I just have to add one of the comments in the chat says that this could really help with providing requested information to some of the elected officials. Huge time saver.
Yes, yeah,
So,
the policy site is commonly used as one of those forms of communication for, again, maybe a non-GIS audience. They just need to see, where do I need to send my money? Where do I need to send the resources?
Yeah, and that's definitely a question that gets asked a lot. So we have about 2 or 3 questions here. So one of them was asking, does someone vet, and I think you covered this too after this question came up, does someone vet the community map data that's added by you, which I believe that was at score, had to be over 80, is that correct?
Right, so the score is simply, is your item complete? Has it been documented? But whether it be an item that's nominated to Living Atlas or contributed to the community maps, yes, there is a process or a group of people on our team that do vet the data. So that's a really good question. We don't just let everything in. It definitely goes through a process. Also, there's my cat.
Hey, cat.
His name is Legend, like on a map.
Oh, okay. I was thinking John Legend, but I like Legend of a Map. See, I'm in a different frame of mind right now. So, okay, great. Let's see. One of the other questions is, this came earlier, so you'll have to think back a bit.
Okay.
It said 26 live feeds and 50 maps is incredible. How and where do you find more data to add?
That's a really good question. We try to work with our customers as much as possible, whether it be people requesting data sets, but we also work very closely with a lot of federal agencies, trying to get them to either host their data or work with us to get it into our live feed system. And so, I mean, if you have one that you don't see there that you wish was there, but you know there's an authoritative source that's updated regularly, that's something you can reach out to our team and suggest. But I mean, I really think we have so many subject matter experts on our team who are constantly trying to fill in gaps. And I would say a huge part of those gaps that we determine come directly from users just like you guys.
Great. And in your presentation, or maybe in one of your closer slides, do you have that contact for people? For or not, or I'm just wondering, the person who posed this question, if they wanted to reach out, who would they contact? Would that be you?
I know that we have a Living Atlas I believe we have a Living Atlas email. I think it's livingatlas@esri.com, but let me find that for you because I know we do have a contact. Sorry, I don't have that right offhand.
No, that's okay. That's okay. While you do that, let me close out that question. And you can think about this one while you're looking that up. Is there a maximum number of layers that can be linked to a map app? You know, I think when you went into the maps and you talked about the data from behind that was linking to it, is there a maximum number for that?
I wouldn't say that there's a maximum number. That's a really good question, though, because I think what we see a lot of times is that people do what we call the dog's bowl. They throw everything into the map and they hope that the end user can digest it and understand it. But I would say that our team, when we create our apps, the rule of thumb is probably more like 3 or 4 layers, partly for performance, but partly for digestibility, because not everyone has time to click through the longest layer list that you've ever seen. That's a preference by our team and it's done for certain reasons, but I would not say there is a maximum.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, you don't want to overcrowd a
Right.
map or the table of contents and stuff. I believe that's the last question, and I just want to say another comment here. Brigitte's saying, great presentation, and she loves your cat's name. Yeah, I need to tell you that because that's a cool name.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah. Yeah, I like maps. So, I mean, you can kind of see the one reflected here. It's on my wall over there, but yeah, our house is full of maps. So I tried to channel that.
I love it. I love it. I love it.
And I cannot for the life of me find that email alias, but for now you can have people just email me. I'm going to send this in the chat to my moderator and lberry@esri.com. And if I can't answer your question, I will direct it to either one of our managers or one of our curators, and they will be maybe a better source than me. Like I said, my focus is on the people category. So if you have questions about census or ECS, happy to help answer those questions. If it goes beyond that, I can help you get to the right person.
That is amazing. That is great. Thank you so much. I'm going to turn it back over to Jenna because I know she's going to tell people how to take a survey and how to get a hold of you as well. So,
great,
Jenna.
Okay, so thank you, Lisa. That was awesome and full of information. I think I'm going to have to go back and watch the on demand like 6 times. So
sorry, I talk so fast. I get so excited.
That's okay. I'm excited too. So I really appreciate you joining us today, and everyone in the session, please take the survey. And tomorrow starts off later than it did today. So tomorrow we're going to join at noon for the lunch discussions, and then we'll have sessions starting at 1. So thank you all. Have a great night. And thank you, Lisa.
Yeah, you get 6 minutes back in your day.
All right. That's great.